Thanks so much for joining me. It rained in a big way across much of Alberta. These scenes here from Elbow Falls, west of Calgary, looking a little bit muddy yesterday, but nothing really to write home about. It looks like the dry soil, the alpine snow really did their job in reducing the amount of runoff entering the Elbow River and elsewhere across the province. Of course, we've also got a lot of standing water. And ditches are filling up. Looks like mosquitoes are going to be out for blood very soon. Let's take a look at how much precipitation actually fell. This is based on the past 7 days here from the Alberta River Forecast Center. And anywhere in that light blue is where you saw over 80 millimeters of accumulation in the past 7 days. So we can see large area of southern and central and portions of northeastern Alberta saw in excess of 80 mils. Some triple digits, 100 millimeters of rain, sort of between Edmonton, Cold Lake, Lloydminster there, Drumheller, Coronation as well, out to the central foothills west of Sundre and Rocky Mountain House. But by far most rain fell in the foothills of southwestern Alberta. So some of our top performers, our greatest totals occurred here at Cox Hill, west of Calgary. One of our Alberta government weather stations recorded 174 millimeters of rain. A couple of our Environment Canada sites here, Pekisco and Stavely, in the 133 to 145 millimeter range. But by far, most rain fell down here in the southwest corner, kind of a triangle from Pincher Creek to Lethbridge to Cardston there. And on the north slope of the Milk River Ridge, some areas in excess of 150 millimeters. And let's take a look at the top two gauges that I was able to find here. This is from the St. Mary Reservoir, sort of the outlet there of the reservoir. You're at basically 180 millimeters of rain fell over that 3-day period during that storm. 180 millimeters, that's a lot of water. And you go a little bit higher up the slope of the land here to the Milk River Ridge, environment and protected areas, rain gauge recording over 180 millimeters up there, about 182. So substantial amount of precipitation. Why this area in particular? Well, we had a very strong northwesterly wind blowing across the province, a moist northwest wind. And so likely what we saw was some terrain enhancement, what we call orographic lift. As that air is forced up the slope of the land, it enhances precipitation totals. And this is, in fact, where we saw the heaviest precipitation here on the north slope of the Milk River Ridge as that air was blowing up the slope of the land. And we likely also saw that in other parts of the province. If you look here southeast to Calgary, the city of Calgary region, kind of 80, 100 millimeters of rain in the end, quite a bit of rain. But you look down here at Mosley, one site recording here over 130 millimeters. There is a west to east trending range of hills here called the Buffalo Hills from eastern Foothills County across northern Vulcan County, south of the Bow River. Likely enough of a rise in the land here that enhanced precipitation totals in this region as well. You go further to the south, we already talked about the Milk River Ridge. Down here, we've got the Sweetgrass Hills of northern Montana. These are ancient volcanic intrusions, beautiful peaks if you've ever kind of been down in the southeast corner of Alberta. They dominate the horizon to the south. One station here in Montana picking up 161 millimeters of rain. So look at all those Coco-Roz sites here this is Liberty County, Montana. It looks like the word got out. Everyone get a rain gauge. That's great. We'd love to see that here in Alberta as well. Again, sign up for Coco-Roz and contribute your findings, your rain gauge measurements to Coco-Roz. It's great. But we can see here lots of heavy rain on the north slope of those hills as well, which of course is good news overall for the Milk River Basin here, which is very dry. Again, largely we've been hearing that this is $1 million rain for many areas in southern Alberta in particular, because we were ahead in our seeding. It was a dry, warm spring, and ahead in our seeding in southern Alberta as well. Central Alberta was mostly complete. So again, very beneficial rain for many areas here, especially southern Alberta as well. This is irrigation country. Southern Alberta is, kind of a part of the broader breadbasket region of the Canadian prairies. And we have a lot of crop diversity here because of our irrigation. Enables us to grow many different kinds of crops. The Bow River, the Oldman, and the Milk are all kind of like 90% of those rivers goes into the water goes into irrigation of crops. And so this is going to significantly reduce the irrigation demand in the near term, and certainly great for the Milk River Basin here again, where we haven't been able to draw water for irrigation since the end of April. So like I say, largely beneficial rain, especially in the absence of flooding, and not likely going to be seeing any significant rain events that'll compound the effects of the saturated soils now. So likely going to be very good news for southern and central Alberta. Not quite the same can be said. We're hearing from northeastern Alberta, this site here east of Edmonton at Lavoie, 113 millimeters. What happened in this area? We had a fairly substantial snowpack in the winter that all rapidly melted in the spring and flooded the fields, delayed our seeding. And then once, we got some of the seeding done, but then the rain came and flooded the fields again. So not good for the crops that were just planted, or, the crops that weren't planted. So we need things to dry out a little bit up here in the northeast. But overall, like I say, generally beneficial rain given the ongoing drought across the landscape. And so now percent of normal soil moisture here, southern central Alberta, western Saskatchewan, we're above normal in terms of our soil moisture. This is as of June 1st. We had even more rain, so it's going to be even more than this in the next couple of days when they update this map. Peace Country, still very dry. You guys really need to get in on this rain. Multi-year drought in that area as well. Far as southern Saskatchewan, southwest Manitoba as well, kind of dry out there. But we did have a fairly substantial thunderstorm system move across southern Manitoba last night, delivering lots of rain to the south. So, and more precipitation likely in the coming days. So we'll probably see some improvements out here as well. At the drought monitor map here, again, let's take a look at this kind of island here really, it's an extension of more severe drought south of the border, but kind of nosing into southern Alberta here in the Milk River Ridge area. Severe drought long-term here on the landscape. So this precipitation event is going to make a significant dent in this, at least in the near term, in this drought down in southern Alberta. Very beneficial precipitation as well. That little island north of Calgary in the Red Deer area, going to be seeing some significant improvements in the near term. But the thing we have to remember about drought is that there's different kinds of drought. There's near-term drought and there's long-term drought, or short-term and long-term. So you'll see the improvement. Let's take a look here at a graphic from a website here called Tempest, and they've got the 4 different kinds of drought here. Your meteorological and your agricultural drought will respond immediately to heavy precipitation events like this. We've had a long dry stretch, we had a big rain, and now the meteorological drought has been alleviated for the time being. Your agricultural drought as well. Now we've got a lot more water in there. The soil moisture is certainly improved. If anything, it might be a little bit too wet at this point. But there's other types of longer-term drought. Your hydrological drought results from several years of precipitation deficits that result in the gradual drawing down of groundwater. Your water table goes down. Your streams start to dry up. Your dugouts start to dry up. The sloughs start to dry up, and overall river flows are a lot less. This is what we're starting to see emerging in parts of southern Alberta, and that can lead to socioeconomic drought, which starts to impact human and environmental needs. And we're seeing that in the Milk River Basin. Again, if you say that you can't take water out because of our water sharing agreement, you're not going to have enough water left once the Milk River re-enters the United States. You can't draw any water out of the river. That's an example of a socioeconomic drought, making its impacts felt in southern Alberta. So these types of drought as well, the long-term drought, in the same way that they take a long time to set in, they take a long time to alleviate. So meteorological and agricultural drought, the bottom line, looks like we've really improved that situation, but long-term, we've got a long way to go. So to put things into perspective here, this is Lethbridge's, our average rainfall based on the 1991 to 2020 average is 284.4 millimeters of rain every year. But what we've been seeing really since about 2015 is just a long stretch of years where we have not seen, we haven't even come close some years to our annual average rainfall. Just deficit after deficit after deficit. That starts to add up over time, such that, this 2015 to 2025 period, those 11 seasons, only 2025 and 2024 there had slightly above average rainfall, but, we've run a significant deficit. So I went and did the math here. And what we should have received during that period of time is 3,128.4 millimeters based on the average rainfall through those 11 seasons, but we actually only received 2,036.5 millimeters. That's a deficit of 1,091.9 millimeters. So over 1,000 millimeter deficit of rainfall. And rain, of course, this also kind of applies to our overall total precipitation as well. We're about 910 millimeters short in this same 11-year period. That includes snowfall, but snow, not as important for groundwater recharge. A lot of it melts and blows away down there in Chinook country and doesn't really contribute meaningfully to soil moisture and groundwater and whatnot. So when you miss out on your summer rains, it's a big deal. So we've got over a 1,000 millimeter deficit of precipitation over time since 2014. It's going to take, if you say we had 10 or 11 seasons in a row of normal rainfall, then you add 100 millimeters in excess. So we have like really wet years for 11 years. That's what it's going to take to bring us back to normal, assuming, before 2014 is normal. So we've been in a multi-year drought in southern Alberta, running a significant deficit, and that's why we're seeing that long-term hydrological drought out there on the landscape. So 100 millimeters, 150 millimeters, that's a lot of water, but it's a drop in the bucket in the big picture. So again, not to be a party pooper, it's a good rain, especially in terms of our meteorological and agricultural near-term drought, but we need a lot more of it in the coming years to start to start to recharge that groundwater over time. Let's take a look just to round out this discussion here at what kind of precipitation is coming. This is a national map here, and this is a 5-day precipitation forecast. It's going to be fairly unsettled in the next few days here. Looks like BC going to be fairly unsettled with a fairly wet pattern there along parts of the coast mountains and some of the interior ranges there. Any rain we can get in the interior critical, because we saw back here on our drought map. Southern and central interior BC starting to see worsening drought there. So this rain would be beneficial for those regions, especially for staving off a bad fire season later on in the summer, maybe even not too far off if it continues this way. A couple of low pressure systems moving across Alberta through the weekend into early next week will deliver even more precipitation to central northern areas of the province. This will be good for parts of the Peace, but not as good for areas of the northeast where we're waterlogged already. Northwest Saskatchewan as well getting in on that. And then portions of the eastern prairies based both on the Canadian and the European guidance here. We're seeing more rain across eastern Saskatchewan, southern central Manitoba. A lot of this is convective rain. This is thunderstorm rain, so it'll be highly localized from one place to the next. But in general, beneficial precipitation for portions of the eastern prairies. And for temperatures, BC and Alberta, slightly cooler than normal for the rest of this week. And as we get into the eastern prairies, it's warmer than normal, more summery out there. Thanks so much for joining me. We'll talk to you next time.